I will talk a little bit about how I began to make performance art, and then I will show some images from 7 performances because I couldn't narrow it down more. And then, but I want to leave time for people to ask questions and just to have a general conversation. So I might go through the images pretty quickly. And if you have questions, we can talk about them afterwards. So I studied a lot of different kinds of art when I was young, music and dance, and I thought I was going to be a painter. But then it was the 1960s. Don't tell me you weren't alive then. And I was reading in the newspaper about happenings. They were, artists were making happenings and Fluxus events in New York City, but I lived in a small town out 8 hours from New York City, north. So my friends and I decided that we would make our own happenings. And so we started creating events. We combined media. They were visual, they interacted with the public. And I wanted to study performance art in college, but no college was teaching it. And so I actually studied directing in theater. But as soon as I finished my undergraduate degree, my BFA, I got a studio. I lived in Boston. I still live in Boston, actually. I got a studio and I invited my friends to make performance with me. And it was before they even had the term performance art. But we wanted to make live events that involved the audience in some way. And we worked in spaces that were not theaters. So we wanted the audience and the performers on the same level. We worked in galleries and bookstores and the food co-op and on the street. And we made a lot of different kinds of performances, some about political issues, feminist ones. Out of that grew Mobius Artists Group, which still exists. We're a collaborative of artists, about 15 of us, and we work in a lot of different media still. So we meet once a month and show our work to each other and critique it. And we also produce public events. And for many years, we ran a public space as well, which we don't do at this point. They're too expensive in Boston. And there's not so much funding in the United States. It might be a rich country, but it's one that's in its capitalist mindset thinks that art should earn money or be an investment object. And so the notion of ephemeral art is not one that's well supported. So there we are. One of the reasons I prefer performance art is because it really operates on a human scale. You don't have to pretend to be anywhere else or be anyone else. You are yourself doing things. And I like the fact that it can focus on something that might be pretty ordinary, but when you frame it a little bit differently, people notice it. So, you know, if you take 6 hours to drink a glass of water, people think about the water and the drinking and the act of sustaining yourself really differently. So a lot of what helps to focus the audience on what you're doing is the way you do it and the kind of commitment you have to the action and the kind of focus. And you might shape it a little bit differently. You might do it a little bit slowly. You might work with materials that are very distinctive. You might pick a space that's unusual to be doing that action. Everything shifts just a little bit how the audience thinks about what you're doing. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to show you some images from some performances over the years. These are works that I've done in different locations around the world, really. I don't bring a prepared work to these, normally done in festivals. I don't bring a prepared work to the festival. I realized when I did that, I was always trying to get the festival to make a space be like my studio. And I was ignoring what was there. You know, why travel all that way if you don't pay attention to the place you're in and talk to the people you're with and try to work with what's there. And so I shifted, and these festivals allow me to come without a plan. A little bit unnerving, but they let me come without a plan, and I spend a day or two looking at spaces and talking to people and design a work after I arrive there. So I do try to read history and politics of a location in advance. I often, I always try to understand what the attitude is towards the United States, how we've, you know, what we've done to the country, good or bad, because I can't escape being an American, especially somewhere else. So some rules that I follow for myself is to have a very low impact on the place, to be able to clean it up and not leave a mark, to work with materials that are local and easily found. And I think of these performances as a kind of conversation between me and the place, the physical location or the people. They're not about delivering knowledge, but really about asking questions. And in many cases, I do have interactions with the public when I'm doing the pieces. So I'm going to share my screen and show you some images. Enough talk. Let me see how this works. Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
All right. But now I can't see. Okay, there we are. Let me see if this works and that we get the real images. Okay, so this first piece is in Taiwan, on the waterfront. And I want to double check that I think the whole image is there. It was an exchange project, and during the week we were there, there was a lot of discussion of the pollution of the harbor and the fact that the fishermen had to go further and further out to sea to find fish. And so I decided to do an impossible task. I decided to try to clean the water in the bay. So I did this for 8 hours. So I took dirty water out of the bay and poured it through a kind of filtration system that we were working with architects. So one of the architects helped design this and build it with me. So I poured the water through, and then after I finished, you can see it goes through rocks and then sand. So it went through the layers that water normally goes through underground to purify it. And then I put it back into the bay. And this is some audience members helping me. And I also had, it was not clean enough to give away to drink. And so one of the things they give away at the temples there in Taiwan are these sealed cups of drinking water because it's very hot. And so I had those and I was giving them away to people that were there. There were other events happening in this open former fish market, future fish market. And so here I am opening a cup of water to give to this man on his bicycle. And you can see some of the audience members in the back holding cups of water and also laughing, seeing me give it to him. So I did this, I think, for 6 or 8 hours. I can't remember now. So I got some of the water clean. I knew that I would have to stay there several years to finish the job, but I didn't. I had to go home. This next piece was in Croatia, Darkness Be Gone, and we were in Istria. And the title in this, in Istrian, is Skoro Hojcha. So it is a kind of, somewhere I had written down where, now I've lost it. I know it in Croatian too, but this was part of a week-long series of actions where I worked with black fabric, cloth, and covered different places and then made the cloth disappear indoors or into the ground. So it's really a visual image, a kind of metaphor about darkness receding and disappearing. This took place in 1999, towards the end of the breakup of former Yugoslavia. And you might know that there was fighting between Croatia and Serbia in Bosnia. And so the darkness of war was still in the air. And I was working to help make it disappear. I was cutting it up in that location, which was a gallery. This is actually in City Hall in Pula. I was pulling the darkness back into City Hall. Whoops. And a former church, coal mine. This was in the courtyard of a military academy, now an art center, but a former military academy that trained officers. And there was a abandoned car pushed into the cellar of it. And the last place that I did it was a museum that had been originally a Roman fort and then used by successive occupiers of Croatia. And what you can see there, let me see if I can, I don't know if there's a way I can show you, but that lump in the yard, actually, I'm going to go back. You see this lump in the front? It's like a bunker. And in the very front of it, you see a black circle. And that's actually opening into a stairwell that goes into tunnels underneath the city. And so I covered that entire courtyard with black fabric. And over the course of hours, I pushed that fabric down through the hole down into underground. I almost couldn't move it at the beginning. It was so heavy.
That's amazing, really fantastic. So, but I have a question. So you did kind of series with this tissue, with the fabric.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a different action each day over 6 days.
But it was always like it covered a big part of the city.
Different. It didn't always cover. Some of it was that long strip. Different ways that the blackness had invaded the place, and I was pulling it back.
But it was always in Pula, in the city of Pula?
Through other towns in Istria as well. Yeah. Okay. And what people understood from the description is that if they said the title out loud, they were participating in the action because it's a command. Darkness, be gone. So a kind of incantation, maybe. Okay, I'm going to go onward. Is that okay?
Yes, sorry, because I turn off the microphone because it's too loud here, too noisy, so I don't want to interrupt.
Okay. But if people want some clarification, they should interrupt me now. So thank you. This next piece, called Icebergs Melting, was in response to the climate crisis. And again, a visual image. It was done for, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours in a festival indoors. The table is covered in salt. And the bowl is a bowl of water, fresh water that I'm holding. And there was a sign that invited the audience to sit on one of the other chairs if they wanted to. So if I heard someone sitting down, I might ask them to help me hold the bowl, give me a rest. Actually, the water's dripping there. I picked a bowl that it had a curved top, and without being able to see it, it was really hard to keep the water even. So here you see people sitting with me, and there the water is really dripping, and taking the bowl to hold it. And it let me rest my arms, because holding up a bowl for hours and hours like that is really not easy to do. I mean, your arms get tired. Very softly, I was sometimes saying a list to myself, really, but if people leaned closer, they could hear it. And I was saying things like ice melts, oceans rise, water flows, cities drown, land sinks, plants die, wind blows. So all the things that are happening in global warming. So there I'm resting my arms. So I never knew who was sitting with me because I was blindfolded and we didn't talk. And I also didn't know what this young man on the left did until I saw the photos. So he did hold the bowl with me, but then at one point he lay his face in the salt. So.
And that piece was also durational.
Yes,
like,
yeah. 6 or 8 hours, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you had the same water from the beginning that you had it from the beginning, nothing more, nothing less.
No. So I lost some of it into the salt. Yeah. But what was in the bowl actually did stay fresh. And I think I took a drink from it at one point when I was thirsty. It was there. This one is a kind of funny one. In markets in Set, France. So as you know, the market doesn't get set up until the day it happens. So each day we went to a different market and I made a performance that I did, an hour or two later. So, and this is an example where picking a location or slowing down the action or holding something for a long time attracts attention. So the first day was in a flower market and I bought DC in front of me is a big tall cactus. And there it is in the sun. And I just sat with the cactus and looked at it. And there you see someone stopping to wondering what I'm doing, I'm sure. And at one point I could play with the shadows on the cactus. And again, I did this for maybe 4 hours. And I put my forehead on the cactus. I was curious about how sharp it would be. And these people, the woman to the left carrying the plant with the red printed shirt, maybe didn't see me at all. But these other couples to both sides are definitely watching. So sometimes people have the time and curiosity and other people, are on a mission, getting their work done for the day. And there I realized it was a little bit tipped, so I decided I needed to sit at the same angle as the cactus. 2 days later, we were in a vegetable market and I was taken with the frise and the cabbage, the color and the shape. And so I'll just back it up a second. I'm actually sitting at a crosswalk. You can see the light behind me. There it is, telling people they can almost walk. And so I really just worked with the vegetables, opened them up slowly. I was interested in the gradation of the color, the drops of water that I found inside of it. I discovered it as I was sitting there. I didn't plan what I was going to do. I just knew I was curious about those two vegetables. So this was also for a couple hours. And then the last market was a flea market. So you can see people had stuff on the ground, laying on the ground that they were selling, and I had a little table that had nothing on it, which in itself was curious to people. And I talked to people about asking them if they had time, if they had too much or not enough, and to try to trade time with each other. And just talk to people about time in their lives, really. All right. Yaron, do you have a question about that? Oh, Mookie, a question.
Who documented your say performance?
Ask that again.
Who documented your performance?
That one was documented by, well, not that one yet. Lisa, Evelyn Goopy, who was part of the festival. So she came around and documented people as they were performing. There were other people performing in these locations at the same time. So sometimes she was there, but sometimes she was not. And actually, I like it better when there is no one with a camera, because when there's a camera, people think it's an event.
Скажіть, будь ласка, то,
No
is
camera.
it okay with the sound for everyone? Because I have something strange with the sound. Sorry.
Tell me, can you hear me?
For me, it's okay.
Okay,
Me too.
okay. Yarina? Well, I'll continue and tell me if it's okay. Anyway, when there's a camera in an outdoor event, the public knows that something's happening or that it's art. But when there's no camera, they have to engage with it directly and decide for themselves what's happening and why you're there. And if they ask me, I usually just say, I'm looking at this vegetable. Isn't it beautiful? Or, do you have enough time in your life? I think I'm giving him time, but he might have given me time too. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll go on. This one, you might notice some people that you know in the performance. This one took place in Poland, in also a durational performance in Sokolowsko, which is a former town with a town that had lots of former sanatoriums for tuberculosis, but most of them are closed now. But taking that as a theme, I got a hospital bed and lay in it in the forest. And my eyes were closed and I held out my hand. And if someone took my hand, I would ask them, I'd pull them a little closer and ask them if they would talk to me about the future. So, do you notice that person on the left in that image?
Yarina.
Yeah. And maybe you know her. Also from Ukraine, but hasn't lived there in a while, Anna.
I think it's fourth grader, I might be mistaken. I thought it's girl from 4th year, but I guess it's not.
So that one for sure was in response to the history of the town. And the fact that people with tuberculosis came there to get the cure and to breathe the fresh air in the forest and hope that they had a future, actually. All right, I think I only have 2 more to show you, and then we just have a conversation. So this is a piece that I did in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And if you know the history of the Troubles, there has been many, many years of fighting about the territory and who is in control of it between Republic of Ireland and United Kingdom. And so even though there is a peace agreement, there is still tension, and the city is very divided in terms of where people live. And so I wanted to do a piece that somehow talked about how you get along with people who are different from you. And so I decided to sew together into new creatures different parts of plush toys. So I had bodies and heads and arms and legs and tails, and I sewed them together in new forms of life. And I was on a public bench in the main shopping area of the town in the rain. You can see how wet it looks there. And I talked to people about how you live, how you live with a body that isn't perfect, how you live with people who are different from you. I knew that I would see children there too. And this last piece is one I did in April. You notice the date. So this was a 13-hour performance from sunrise to sunset, and I was on the grounds of a rural college in Pennsylvania, and trees and fields and a farm. And I wanted to talk to people about the war in your country and what they understood about it. And so I ended up reading, I had brought this book. I mean, I didn't decide to do that until I got there, but it was on my mind. And I had brought this book that is a very detailed account of the meltdown at the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl in 1986. And so once I got there, it was like, oh, I can just read this out loud for 13 hours and talk to people. And that's what I did. I moved my chair to different locations in the college, and we talked about the war, about what it's like to live in a really safe place when things are happening somewhere else that are horrific. We talked about, this was also when the Russian soldiers had dug up, they dug trenches or whatever in the exclusion zone and had got radiation sickness. And we were told in our news accounts that they had no idea that this reactor had had a meltdown. And so I talked to students about how they learned history, how they learned about events, what they relied on. And one of the most telling conversations, sorry, I'm going to get to this image of this. I did a little bit of it indoors, but I was talking with this woman and I said, well, do you know about 3 Mile Island? And that is a nuclear reactor in the United States that had an accident in 1979, very close to where this college is. And she did not know about it. And so I made her look it up on her phone and she read it to me out loud. But, we think it's so foolish of those soldiers not to know the history, but there's a lot of history in the world that we don't learn about. And so, it was just an opportunity after COVID to talk with people. Here's the main center of the college. And it was an opportunity to hear how other people understood what was happening in the world. That's all I'm going to show you.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Okay, I don't know, maybe someone has some questions. It would be nice to talk, not just to listen.
Yeah. Or you could tell me about your own work too.
Yeah, because actually what was very important and precious from my point of view, as I said then in that conversation with Karen, that at the beginning it sounded really crazy for me that there is a war, but we have to continue to do something. And finally, almost each of the students changed their ideas. They started to work with different topics, with different themes, and it finally happened. It caused that the war didn't only took something. It did not take something, but also it gave something. It gave an impulse. At least it was the way how to transform this negative emotions, this negative impulses into something creative. And maybe you could share something about it. At least Julia, maybe you could start.
Your work was beautiful, so cute.
Sorry, Mikola, who it was? I didn't see.
Це я. Мені просто дуже сподобалася ця робота з ведмедиком.
Okay. Yeah, кажіть. Just tell it, please, because I didn't hear, that's all.
I liked your work with beautiful.
With beer, with toy, when you sew it together. I really liked it.
One of, I try to assume that the public has the same concerns that I do, and that they might have answers that I don't have. So a chance to share, to share our concerns rather than, I'm not different than other people. And if we're in the same place, we have a lot of the same worries.
So I have a question because I also seen that you did more performances during last months, and it was, as I understood it, it was also about this political situation, what happens in the world, also about war here in Ukraine. So maybe you could tell something more about it, what it was for you, and where is it, and how did it influence on the people?
I think the hardest for people here in the United States, it's because the media, because it's so easy to get information now on the internet, immediate information about a situation, and see images and hear people describe what's happening to them. It makes you feel very close to the events, but in a lot of cases, helpless, other than pressuring our government or our politicians to help in whatever way is possible. Some Americans have come to Ukraine. Other people are giving money to different organizations, but just that the experience of feeling so close to what's happening and yet a very big distance between us, really. And, maybe since the pandemic, our only way of being close with people is on Zoom, and it begins to feel normal. And yet, there is a physical distance that we can't surmount. And so people talked about, learning about the war, what they, the media coverage that they were reading or seeing, and what they were doing. And then, the more general conversation about what you learn, because these were college students, it's like what you learn in a college class about history and what you don't learn about history. And so they understood that they needed to go beyond what their professors or courses were teaching them. And we talked a lot about nuclear power and about the climate crisis too.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe someone else. What about you, Julia? What is your experience
with war? Or
yes, and also about maybe some impressions, I don't know, some comments.
Or trying to make art in the middle of horrible events.
Okay, well, this semester I made the performative presentation about Russophobia, and it was a challenge for me because at the start I had the idea with I felt that I couldn't say anything new about the situation, and I thought I will just collect phrases and words of other people about it, Ukrainians or Lithuanians, and just collect them and make some kind of piece out of it. But it didn't work out because I still couldn't add anything from myself to it. So later, I just collected my sketches, my poems, my thoughts, and I developed it in a performative presentation about Russophobia and what I think about it from this perspective of a Ukrainian person, from this perspective of Ukrainian who left the country, because here, even though Lithuania is pretty close and most people are pretty radical about Russians, but some are not, and they keep more European kind of view, that they feel pity for Russians too. And I wrote a text about it, and I was honest, telling about how every day I felt my Russophobia was going up and then down, and what my parents said about it, and it was a personal experience, it was very personal performance. I also thought about my YouTuber who was my favorite YouTuber, but he was Russian, and I stopped watching him, and every of us, I think most of Ukrainians have stopped following Russian artists now, and they had probably favorites.
Mhm.
So yeah, basically my art piece was about this.
And what I think might be important is that you articulated those feelings and experiences which other people have too, but you're doing it through the art.
Yes, and when first writing that text, my professor who was creating me on this on that semester on that project, what seemed very obvious for me, for him seemed very not obvious. And when I read it, he pointed out that I think that I will talk for Ukrainian auditory, but Lithuanian people know much less, so I needed to describe all the context of culture, things more go in theory and our relationships between us and Russians. Yes, so another things that seem not obvious to me, professor said that it was obvious, but I guess it's also some personal attitude. So yeah, it couldn't be not connected to other people since war touched every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my experience. I also, Yarina said that she spent 20 hours in the road. I spent 3 days and I wrote a poem about it. About me counting buses on border and waiting for a line to move. So that's how it was.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
maybe some comments or questions to Marilyn.
I really liked the performances with objects, with cactus and with a cabbage. It made me think that it's possible to do millions of such performances with every object in an apartment, in a room, or wherever you are, and it will be something in it. I also often, when I was little, I was writing stories from perspective on the object in my room. And so it's relatable was for me. I liked it a lot.
You know, an exercise in a workshop that I teach, I ask people to write autobiographies of objects.
Mhm.
So they speak in the first person, you know, like
Yeah.
I. Because often we humans don't pay attention to the objects we use. We try to make them do things that we want them to do, but they have their own life. They have their own life.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Thank you for presentation. I very liked your every performance you showed was very original, and I doubt I will see it ever again.
I try not to repeat myself.
Mm-hmm. But I have it's a very, I guess, maybe it's not nice to ask, but you said that in 1964 you read an article. How old you was back then? You cannot answer, I guess. Just
I will answer, of course I'll answer. I was 13.
Okay, because it seemed like that you I thought you should be at least like 17 to have an idea to go with your friends to do somewhere like happening, and it's very cool that in such young age you already basically found yourself where you could move. Yeah. Thanks again.
And also it's so important to know it, that you were inspired by an article in newspaper. It's from one side it's so easy, but it's so important that yes, you had this this wish to do something, to create, and you didn't want to wait to somebody to teach you, to ask somebody. Right. Just I want to do it, and so I do it, and that's really amazing. And I also remember when I finished academy in 2012, and also we didn't have any performance, neither contemporary, almost nothing. Someone who wanted to do installation or video, we had this opportunity, but it was just for us do it, but no one could help us with that, no one from the teachers. And I remember that at the beginning I was thinking that really nothing happened here before like 2006 or 2000, but finally, like asking more and more, and it appeared that many artists worked in the field of performance, or it was not called performance, but it was kind of action and performances, but it was always done in a secret way, because it was not allowed, and yes, underground, because of this USSR, and that there were many crazy stories about the questions of the KGB. What did they ask? Some about like naked portraits, and that was already a problem for them. So if somebody could just do something else that others, so that could be a big problem too. But that's really inspiring. At least that's for me, that it's a big sign that if you want to do something, just start, just find some people who can be a good elbow for you, and just go ahead. That's amazing.
I think that's maybe the most important part, is to find some other people who do it with them. Also, for me, they were the ones that, my friends were the ones that help, like if I had an idea, I would first think it was really stupid and I would tell them. And then the next month they would say, did you do it? And it was like, no, like, you have to do it. And so they really helped me make things happen. I couldn't have done it alone, but a group of people help each other. And I say they held my feet to the fire. Do you have that saying? We say it when, someone makes you do something, they hold your feet to the fire. It's a horrible image.
No, but it makes you work, then run. Yes, we have this expression like to put the feet into the hands. It means that run or just escape, but yeah, so something strange image also.
Yeah. It's maybe hard to run if your feet are in your hands.
You have to become around the circle and then just yeah, become a bike. And I don't know, maybe Maria, Mikola, girls, Christina, what about you? We would like to hear you.
I can ask some question. Hello, my name is Anna, and I'm studying at the history of art and some creating more stuff. And on my way to learning from history of art, the different types and styles of art, I'm trying to understand what I like, what is gonna be, and what is like actually like today's art. And for me, performance and actions and happenings is some strange but very interesting zone, which I want to like learn more. And for me, like the most important question, what is actually performance or happening is for performers like you, who is like did some like big stuff. When you like understood that this idea can be performance, or I do this and actually I can do this like for art or something. How you identify that there's can be performing art or something in this area, and how you can like clear that there is not, there is just something that people are always doing, or it's not the team I want to like share or something. How you understand this?
Well, I think it's possible to make art out of anything. I think the question is more about maybe about why you want to make art. Because I think of art as a kind of effort to communicate with another person about something in the world. And so the question is maybe how to design the interaction to ask the question. I don't know if that answers what you're asking.
Not exactly. I just I can understand in only my way, in only my subjective way. I can understand why some artists drawn this or make some installation. But in some way, I don't really understand when sometimes performers said that there is a performance. For example, I spoke with my friends and we were smoking we were smoking and we were talking, and I said, what is performance for you? Because for me, you can't say that everything the people are doing, like the human being, is performance. And my friend was said to me that now look, I'm smoking right now, and if I'm said that there is a performance, and I'm said, no, you don't have the idea or some resolution for it, or questions or nothing. Why are you calling this performance? And she asked it, because I want to call it performance. And I'm like, I don't think that there is like working like this. It's strange. It's something not accurate, I think. So the question, how to like classificate it or something.
Well, I mean, smoking could be a performance, but it would have to be, yeah, how do you as the audience know that that period of that cigarette or joint, whatever it was, that period is art. This period is life. but this one is art. But that's what the artist has to do, to make that shape around the action in such a way that it makes you pay attention to it differently. It makes you pay attention and think about other, sort of bigger questions around, like smoking, but what is the question around smoking that they want you to think about?
Okay.
But if it's done, if it's done in a gallery, and if everyone's in the dark and then the lights come up and that person pulls out the joint, the cigarette, and smokes it, looking at you in the audience, and then the lights go down, it's very dramatic and you think about it differently. But if they're just sitting across from you on a city street, you don't see it as anything special or art-like. So what would they have to do on the street to make it art? I mean, that the street is a harder context because people are just walking by. They're not planning to look at art. So what do you make a really big cigarette? And maybe they would think, well, that's something different is there, and why? And then they begin to think about the bigger question. Does that, how's it?
Yeah, thank you.
It's a really difficult question when you work with real materials and real actions in a real place. Then the choices that you make to help people frame it as art are hard. I mean, it's easy when it's a canvas. You know that you're looking at a painting or a drawing, but it's harder because the person is not stopping their life to make the art. They're still living and the art is happening, and then they go on with the rest of their life. So how do you actually frame?
Yeah, you need to do something to make people stop and look at you for some reason.
Yeah. And how do you work with street and with strangers who are just walking by, and how they can identify that you are performing right now and not just sitting and reading a book? And I think that some people can think, oh, this crazy woman sitting there, and I just don't want to look at this and go next. So
that definitely happened at the college, and all I could hope was that they heard, like overheard Chernobyl, nuclear, that something in the language triggered some connected thought, even when they were afraid to stop and ask me what I was doing.
Oh, so did you make some like exactly points of your sound and your voice? Like, do you mark these words? Did you mark this word?
No, I just was reading it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some people, yeah, didn't understand it all. Maybe they saw the title of the book too. But if in that kind of work, you have to be willing to let people not be interested or not understand or choose not to ask a question or stop.
And also, I have a question about your performances. Always, I think, have political issues there. No, not always.
No, I didn't. Well, maybe more than not. I didn't show some of the other ones.
Okay, so art can be without politics.
I mean, it's about, let me think about one that I've done that's not about politics. Well, I did one where I walked, I was in a field wearing a red dress, and I was with the audience at the beginning, saying hello. And then for 2 hours or 3 hours, so I started to walk backwards very slowly, and planting seeds in the field. And I walked backwards until I disappeared from view. So the audience was standing in one place. And so as they watched me, I would get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until I disappeared in the green. So not political.
Kind of political, maybe.
But probably more about death.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and done as a visual image. I mean, I told the people when before I started walking backwards, I said, I'm leaving, but you can't follow me. You have to stay. I think something like that. Now I've forgotten. So they knew that they had to watch me disappear. Yeah.
And I have a question about this group of people with whom you have started, and you said that you are still working. So who are these people, and how does it look like your work together? Because it's, as I understand, it's for years, and it's also a kind of other perspective for you to feel, to observe it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the group really started in 1975. But I'm the only person who's been there the entire time. Some people have retired, some have left, some have died. We always get new members to the group and young members. So now the age range is, from 78 down, and not me, I'm 71, but there's an older member, down to 22, I think, is the youngest member. So most of the people work, make individual work, but some members of the group are often collaborating with each other as well. So the work has changed over decades. And we did have a public space, a big open gallery space. So we showed our own work in it, but a lot of other people, also showed their work, people in Boston, but then we did exchanges with artists from other parts of the world. And so we are now without a space, which means we have to do our work in borrowed spaces or public parks. And currently, you know, coming out of the pandemic, we'll be doing more work in public parks, probably. So the work has changed over the years, but we help each other, you know, either with critiques or technical assistance or performing with each other, collaborating, whatever, you know, however we can help each other to make the work that we want to make.
Oh, I actually remembered about critiques because and theory. So it's for the students. I would ask you to check in our library because it should be like from the beginning of this week that we have the possibility to read the online the electronic versions of like PDF versions of the books from the intellectual book. Yes, so this is an editorial house, and I really invite you to ask to contact the library of our academy and ask them, and I'm sure that you can find there many interesting things. And also there is a book of Marilyn that could be interesting for you, and I'm sure that you will find some answers to your questions too.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But I also have a website that has a lot of projects on it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to ask all the time, but I have so many questions too. No, it's I'd like to know about how is your teaching process? How does it go, and how long, and generally how do you work as a teacher, as a student?
Well, I taught at an art academy, the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, for 27 years, but I left in 2014. But there I started a performance art department, and I taught, but I had other people teaching and international visitors also teaching. And since then, I've been teaching workshops. So they've been, I just did one in Salt Lake City, Utah, with a group of artists who I have been working with for about 8 years. I go once or twice a year, and they let me try out new workshop ideas on them. And so, you know, it's very informal. We figure out a price that covers my airfare, and I stay in the home of one of the artists, and we do the workshop in her studio. But, you know, I taught a number of years at the Venice International Performance Art Week in Venice, where we did 10-day workshops. The students came from all over, and they did the workshop and then did public performances at the end of the 10 days. And I've taught in some shorter workshops in universities in Switzerland and Norway and the UK. So, you know, I'll come teach wherever. I didn't really plan to leave my teaching job in 2014, but there were politics at the school that I didn't like. Politics. I couldn't imagine sitting in a room with the president of the school and act like he was ethical or professional. So I left, but I love to teach, and have spent years thinking of ways to teach performance that isn't about people learning how I work, but to help them figure out a way that makes sense for their own work. So there are a lot of different approaches to performance. And yeah, so I'm interested in all different kinds of performance. It's one of the reasons, I've gone to lots of performance festivals and I've seen thousands of performances. And, every person does it differently. And I love seeing the choices that people make and how they work with materials and how they work with ideas and how they work with the audience and how they work with space and their own bodies. It's like there are endless possibilities. You don't get to the borders of the canvas so quickly when you're doing performance. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, great, thank you. I really hope that we could enjoy this. So maybe really physically in Ukraine, I hope that it would be possible finally. But anyhow, we can do it in
I will come
in other
when it's possible.
ways. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I promised Marilyn like about 1.5 hours, so I will try to keep my promise, but we have we have like five minutes more, and if somebody wants to tell or ask something more, so please, you have this moment. And I hope that in any case we will organize one more meeting and we will decide what to do, but maybe in just closer to the educational year, like in September. And then, yeah. So,
okay, I've just put my email in the chat. So if people have questions that they still have, that they think of after we finish here, you're welcome to write to me. I would like that. Yeah. And, and I want to hear about the work that you're doing.
So
art is important and people need it. It's hard to do, but people need to see it. It gives people hope.
Oh, and I forgot to tell that hello from Danny Blacker. She asked to tell you hello because now was the 3rd year in our department. We are working on an exhibition. It's the developing of one part of semester, and we hope that everything will go good, and the guys will have the exhibition in the Museum of Migration in London. So we are working on it, and yeah, that would be the possibility to show something there. Yeah, to talk with art. Okay, so from my side, I would tell really many thanks to you, Marilyn. That was really enriching a lot for me, and I hope that for everyone. Thank you very much for your time, for your wish to join us, and that's really very important moment, and I think it's the best moment of life when we can just share something, just talk, and this is the moment when the creative energy starts to work, to do something. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We keep in touch. And yeah, so girls, if you want, so you have the word. It's for you.
I just wanted to thank you for your time, and it was very informative. I'm looking forward to see more of your performance. Maybe I will be able to see them in Ukraine someday if you come, and so thanks.
Thank you.
And we also want to say thank you for your time that you spent on us, and it really was helpful. And
Interesting.
Anya understood something more now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also
Good
wanted
questions, everyone. Thank you.
also want to thank you. It was a pleasure to listen to you and to see your works. They really inspired me so much, and your point of view and your point of view of art is really inspired. It was a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Дякую.
It's thank you in Ukrainian. Дякую.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you
Thank you.
a lot. Thank you, Marilyn. Thanks to everyone who joined. And I think that we will organize something more. Yes, Marilyn?
Say that again. Yakuya.
Дякую.
Yakuya.
Oh,
Because
right.
I know, because Yakuyu. Okay. Because I know it in Polish.
Yes, it's a bit similar. Yeah.
Yeah. different.
Dziękuję.
Yeah. And I
That's
know
something.
Macedonian and Croatian too, a little bit. So
So
everything.
it will be easy for you here.
Okay. All right, everyone, please take care and be safe. And let's hope life returns to normal soon. Or a new normal. Yeah. And I
Thank you
hope,
for-
and I will see you in person one day soon.
That's our dream now, to meet. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks
you.
to everyone, and we keep in touch and see you soon. So
Okay.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hugs.